Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I just wanted to talk about some things that you need to know about Contiki before doing one. Before I was doing my first Contiki, I was looking on YouTube and I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for, and I feel like a lot of people talked about the same things. So I tried thinking of a few things that you may are wanting to know and you just can't find the right answer for. So to begin, obviously this varies depending on what trip you're doing. For me, I did the European Discovery, and that is 12 days in Europe. We visit 9 countries, so it's quite fast-paced. You're always on the go doing stuff. So my first question before I was doing my trip was, should I bring a suitcase or a backpack? Obviously this depends on what trip you're doing. If you're in Asia somewhere and you're moving around a lot, maybe the backpack is the way to go. But in Europe, we were literally on the bus and then we go to a hotel right after, so it's not like we'd be walking around a lot with our suitcases. So for me, I did bring a suitcase, and what size of suitcase, Contiki has regulations on how big you can bring. I suggest packing accordingly and thinking exactly what you're gonna need. I brought like a medium-sized suitcase. A lot of people on the trip brought like these huge ass suitcases, and I just think that was kind of unnecessary. Obviously, my opinion, some people think they should bring more than they need. Up to you. The morning of, we'd be going straight onto the bus, so the bus driver would be loading our suitcases on the bus, and then most of the time we didn't get to our hotel when we got to our destination right off bat. We go into the city and explore, and then we go to our hotel. So that means our suitcases stay on the bus. So yeah, you don't have to worry about where you're gonna put your suitcase. It's just gonna be on the bus for you when you get to the hotel. Alright, also money. I know a lot of people are wondering, how much money should I bring? What should I budget for each day? For me, since I was gone like almost 2 weeks, I brought 500 euros with me cash. And keep in mind, like, obviously if you're a shopper, you're gonna be spending more money. For me, I don't buy souvenirs. I'm not much of a shopper. I'd rather spend money on experiences rather than things to bring home. So 500 euros was probably the perfect amount. I ended up getting more money out of an ATM, but all those 500 euros I used for taxis and for food, and that's it. I didn't use my card. I didn't use my debit card. I didn't use my credit card once on this trip. Because in Europe mostly people use cash to pay for things. Like, it's not really, you can't use card in most places. So I always recommend just having a whole bunch of cash on you, just to make it a lot easier, and obviously get the right currency before you leave. I remember our first destination was London, and then we'd leave into Amsterdam. So of course London has pounds, Amsterdam has euros, and my roommate did not have any euros with her yet, so she had to go to a currency exchange in London. And for me, that kind of like freaks me out. I want to be more prepared, and I want to know if I have the money before my trip starts. So I always recommend that. Also, if you're carrying a large amount of cash on you, I definitely don't recommend having the cash all in one place. So for example, I'd split my amount of money. I'd have half of it in my luggage and half of it on me, and I just kind of like put it in random places. So then in the off chance that my luggage would be lost or I'd get pickpocketed, I'd still have cash on me or in my suitcase in case of an emergency. Also partying. When you think of a Contiki, you kind of think party central, like everyone's there to party. For me at least, like, I'm not much of a partier. I'm kind of I didn't do this trip to party. I came to see I came to have an experience and to see a bunch of things. Of course, I wanted to still have fun, but I didn't want to be partying every night, and I knew I wasn't going to be doing that. So I was kind of worried if everyone else was going to be partying and I was going to be alone at my hotel or something. That was not the case at all. Obviously, this depends on what trip you're on and also the people on your trip. It varies, of course. For me personally, it was kind of half and half. Like, a lot of people would go out every night, but then a lot of people would stay and rest up for the next day because you'd be doing, it's on the go all the time. So you're going to be traveling and on the bus like a lot of the time. So for me personally, I didn't want to be hungover. If you're worried you're just going to be with a whole bunch of young people that are partying all the time and that's not you, that's okay. If you want to be partying every night, there's people that will do that with you too. So there's nothing to worry about there. Early mornings. The mornings will not be your best friend on this trip. I think our latest start was 9 o'clock. Other than that, we'd be getting up at around 7 or 7:45, and the bus would be leaving at like 8 or so. So keep that in mind. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Keep that in mind because getting up in the morning is very hard. Also, the Contiki cough is a real thing. Okay, you hear about it and you don't know if it's true. It's definitely true. I got sick on the trip. I had a cold. So keep in mind, the most chance you will get sick on this trip. So before you leave for the trip, make sure you get the necessary medicines and tablets to help you when you're sick, basically. So be prepared for anything that could happen. Some people bring first aid kits, some people bring like cold and flu tablets, anything. Just do it. Be prepared. You don't want to be stuck with no medicine when you're really sick and abroad, because you don't want to be worrying about getting something when you're in Europe and then you're wasting time when you could be out experiencing something. Passports. I've also seen a lot of questions online. Should I keep my passport on me? Should I keep it in my suitcase? What should I do with my passport? The answer is definitely different for everyone. Everyone has their own opinions on whether you should carry a passport with you or if you should leave it in your luggage. Personally, for me, I left my passport in my luggage for the most part because the off chance of me getting pickpocketed is higher than my luggage getting stolen in my hotel room. I'd always like lock my luggage just in case, but yeah, I definitely thought getting pickpocketed was more there was a higher chance of me getting pickpocketed and losing my passport. Actually, one of the girls on my trip did lose her passport. I think she left it in like a taxi or something. So she did have to go to the US Embassy on the last day of her trip. And you just don't want to be dealing with that. So make sure if you're carrying your passport, make sure it's on you the whole time and keeping it safe. Just know where your passport is at all times. The bus rides. Keep in mind, you're going to be on the bus most of the day. I'd say like the longest we were on the bus for was 11 hours, and that was from Switzerland to Paris. But our shortest bus ride was probably about 3 or 4 hours. So keep in mind before you're doing your Contiki trip, you're going to be on the bus for a long time. So if you get travel sick, make sure you have medicine. Make sure you have things to keep you occupied. For me, I brought, I had TV, TV shows on my phone, movies, books, and everything to keep me occupied. I actually didn't end up needing any of them because I was looking out the window for most of the trip. Or you're sleeping. You're catching up on rest that you kind of stayed out long or whatever. So just keep in mind, bus rides are very long. So you'd usually be leaving early morning and then you'd be getting into your destination wherever that is late afternoon or early evening, depending. Optionals. So for the me time optionals, they are there for you if you want to do extra stuff on your trip. Extra stuff. So budget accordingly. Me time optionals are basically activities that you do during your free time. So for example, like we had a whole bunch of optionals like wine tasting, whitewater rafting, gondola rides in Italy. And a lot of people on my trip thought like the me time optionals were optionals. So if you weren't doing this, your trip manager would take you somewhere else. That's not the case. It's you're either doing these me time optionals or you're kind of sitting on the bus waiting for everyone else to finish. So keep that in mind. Like for example, whitewater rafting, the bus would take us to that place, and the people that aren't doing the rafting would have to wait in like this cafe for the rest of the group to finish. I always recommend doing most of the me time optionals, if not all. So budget accordingly. Like they are expensive. For example, I did all the me time optionals and I spent an extra 800 Canadian dollars. So that's a lot of money, but I'm really glad I did every single one of them. Scammers, pickpocketers are very common in Europe. This is not something you think about when you're in Canada or you're back home. You're not really worrying about that. In Europe, it's very common, so make sure you keep your valuables safe. For example, like if you're a girl, keep your backpack on your front side or have a satchel where it's in the front of you so you know where it is at all times. Pickpocketers are very, very clever when it comes to getting something out of your purse without you knowing. If you're a man, keep your wallets in your front pockets, not the back. Anything could happen, so just be aware. Contiki gives you the option if you want to have a single bed, so be alone, have your own room in the hotels, share with one person or share with two people. Personally, I would not recommend having your own room unless you're like 30 or 35 and you want your own space and you're really clear on that, then go for it. I'm saying if you're younger, I definitely recommend having a twin share room just so you can meet someone. That's mainly how I met people, was through my roommate. If I was rooming alone, I would have felt it would be harder to make friends, I feel. As far as the triple share goes, I was always worried if I chose the triple share. It's cheaper, of course, but then would I be roomed up with two people that already know each other? So then I'd be with two friends and then I'd be kind of alone. So I recommend doing the twin share. Obviously, that's up to you. Do whatever you want. As far as packing, be smart on what you pack and what you leave behind. Don't overpack. The likelihood of you wearing everything you bring is very unlikely. Straighteners or curling irons if you're a girl. I brought my straightener. I didn't use it once on my trip. I just went au natural, and plus we don't really have a lot of time because you're on the go the whole time. So I just recommend not bringing one. It takes up room on your suitcase and the likelihood of you using it is very slim. But if you know you will use one, only bring one. Bring a straightener or bring a curling iron. Don't bring both. It's just silly. Same goes for makeup. Don't bring your whole makeup with you. Just bring what you need, the essentials. For me, most of the days I did not wear any makeup. That's just me though. If you aren't confident enough to not wear any makeup, then bring a little bit. But it takes up a lot of room in your suitcase, so just be aware of that. I see a lot of questions online, people wondering who's gonna be on your Contiki group with you. It's gonna range from 18-year-olds to 35-year-olds. That's a big gap. On my trip, I'd say most people were like early 20s to late 20s. The youngest person on our trip was 18. The oldest was like 35. So we had a big range, but mostly people were around like 23, 24, 25. Sometimes you're gonna get people that are mostly younger, and sometimes you're gonna get people that are mostly older. My trip, there was a lot of couples, but then there were also a lot of solo travelers and it was their first time coming out of the country. Since it was my first time out of the country, I was quite worried if people were not going to be speaking English. It is Europe. Most people speak English. Of course, there's some people that like know the basics, and that's all you're gonna get. Difficult place was Paris. We encountered a lot of people that hardly speak any English, so it was kind of hard. But other than that, don't worry about it. Most people speak English in Europe. Paying for toilets. This is basically everywhere in Europe. You do have to pay for toilets, pretty much everywhere, unless like restaurants and cafes and stuff. Roughly, it costs like 25 to €1. It wasn't more than €1, so make sure you always have change on you just in case you need to use the toilet. My trip was very fast-paced, so if you're going on a more fast-paced trip and you're worried that you're not going to have enough free time for you, personally, I thought I had enough free time. Like, in each place we had at least 2 hours to ourselves to explore on our own, and I thought that was more than enough time.
That's all I recorded, but if you have any other questions, just leave them down below and I'll get back to you. Thank you.